man. As Victor Crowley and as Jason Voorhees, please help me welcome Mr. Kane Hodder.
Well, thank you guys. I'm very happy to be back here. I did one day last year, and it was such a good success we decided to do 2 days. So.
How was Salt Lake City treating you so far?
Very good. I spent a lot of time in Park City also, so familiar with Utah far more than I thought I would be, so I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful! Well, thank you so much for being here. I know everyone is absolutely thrilled to hear everything you have to share. So just to give everyone kind of an insight into how this is going to work, I'm going to start us off with a few questions for Kane, and then when I give you the word, we're going to have some fans line up right here, and you can have all of your burning questions answered. Sound good? All right. Wonderful. So Kane, my first question for you. When you took over as the iconic character Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th, The New Blood, what was your experience like breathing life into such an iconic character?
Well, I mean, I have always been a horror fan my whole life and always loved the Friday the 13th movies, like many of us. So when it became possible, because at first it was just possible, thank you, that I would play the character, I couldn't believe it, first of all, because here's a character I've watched for 6 films and enjoyed every one of them, even though they're vastly different, performances were different. I just loved the character itself. And John Buechler, who directed Part 7, is the single reason I ever played Jason, because he had it in his mind, because I had done a movie the previous year, I don't know if you know this, but I had done a movie called Prison that Rennie Harlan directed. And I was the stunt coordinator, and that's where I first met John Buechler. He was doing makeup effects on the movie. And he came to me and said, you know, at the end of the movie, there's a character called Forsyth that is going to have a full body prosthetic makeup, lenses, dentures, full body suit of latex. And he said, have you ever done that? And I hadn't really. So he said, would you like to? And I said, sure, as a stunt coordinator, you know, you're not that often on camera, unless you're doubling the lead, which happens a lot. But he said, why don't you play this character? And it's barely in the movie. At the very end, you know, I come out of the ground strapped to an electric chair, I stand up, I scream, the makeup looked amazing, and just based on that performance, and by the way, Viggo Mortensen was in the movie, who was unknown at the time, became a giant star, great guy. He was actually at my wedding. And because I got married, that was in '87, I got married in '91, and we were still friends because we did, after Friday Part 7, then I did Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, and stunt doubled R.A. Mahaloff as Leatherface and stunt coordinated and worked with Viggo again in that movie, so we became friends. But John appreciated how I worked in the makeup, because I think you already realize it's not easy. When you have full body prosthetics where pieces are glued onto your face and head, the process takes 3.5 hours typically. That's what it did in the Prison movie. And John, from the beginning, when he got the job to direct Part 7, he says, this is the guy that should play Jason. And Paramount Pictures is like, never heard of him. And he says, he kept saying, you've got to trust me. This guy is the one that should play Jason. And they were like, "Man, he's not really all that tall. We kind of want a bigger guy." And John just wouldn't hear of it. He almost jeopardized his own directing job by insisting that I play Jason. And, you know, I like to think he was correct because, I mean, I did 3 more films after that one as the character, so it's kind of hard to dispute that he was correct because nobody else ever did it. And you can imagine, if you can, I don't even know if you can, but imagine loving a character and watching for years, and now you're that person. You're that character, playing the character that you've loved. I couldn't believe it. I felt like it was the biggest honor. I had done a lot of stunts and even did in that movie, but nothing compared to, you know, you go into stunts, you're not trying to become famous. So you never expect to sign an autograph when you're a successful stunt person. That's not what it's about. Then you play a character like this, and everything fucking changes. Now everybody wants to sign us up, which is a huge honor. I still feel it is. You know, it's just, and once I played the character the first time, even partway through the film, I felt like I'm meant to do this. People like, oh Christ, roll their eyes, oh, you were born to play Jason, and yeah, that's kind of how I feel. It felt so easy and so natural. And then, you know, before we started shooting part 7, sorry to make this an endless answer, but I went back and watched all the previous movies again before we started shooting. Once I had the job, because I wanted to see what other guys had done that I liked as a viewer and things that I thought could have been better, and then just develop my own style. And I'm sure you've heard this story before, but the first time I put the makeup on, the full body, because again, 3.5 hours of prosthetics on my face, even with the hockey mask on, which I didn't expect. I thought, well, I don't have to wear the full makeup until the mask comes off, you know, 3/4 of the way through the movie. But because of the way John designed the makeup, you could see my jaw open and close over here, even with the hockey mask on. So I had to wear the makeup every day. But the first time I put everything on as a test, we weren't shooting yet, I was at John's shop. I looked in the mirror and I started doing movements and stuff that I thought I might do when we start filming. And every time I stared at myself in the mirror, in the costume, since I'm not speaking and you can't see my facial expressions, I thought, man, what's missing? And to me, if I just stood there and didn't do anything, I looked like a mannequin. So I thought, what could I do to make this look more terrifying? Even though I'm just basically standing there. And that's when I came up with the breathing thing. And, you know, when I stood like this, okay, that looks good. Then when I'm doing this, I thought, holy shit, that looks like he's about to explode. Any moment. And, you know, obviously it worked and I continued doing it, but here's a bit of trivia, by the way, that just popped into my head. The very first thing I ever put on camera as Jason in part 7, because as you know, films are not shot the way we view them. They're shot in completely different order of how the movie is put together. So you never know what's going to be your first shot. The very first thing I ever did, it was a vision that Tina has. And I'm holding an actor named Bill Butler up with a tent stake through his chest. And she sees this vision. And I've seen a still of that one time, I think, and it's just me holding him with a tent stake through his chest. He's like that, and I'm just behind him. That's the very first thing I ever put on film as the character. So kind of cool because Bill and I are friends because he was also in Chainsaw 3 playing a character. He played the character of Michael in Part 7 and always did my makeup. So I kind of was happy that that's the first thing I ever put on film. Now, unfortunately, I didn't really pay attention to the very last thing I put on film as Jason. I need to research that somehow. But obviously Jason X, and I need to figure out what was the very last thing I did because I didn't think I was going to be done after Jason X. A little pompous, I guess, but I thought I did 4 movies in a row. They'd probably stick with me, but of course, that's not how Hollywood is. But so you know, I just my biggest aim and ambition when I first played the character was to do justice to the character, because you know other people kind of walk through the motions and didn't add much to it. So I wanted to make sure people are used to this character. We gotta step it up a notch somehow. As a viewer, I would even think that. So that's what we tried to do.
Absolutely. Well,
I'll try and make the answers a little less lengthy. Sorry.
No, that was perfect. Well, clearly they made the right decision because anyone who knows anything about film, horror film in particular, knows that you are Jason Voorhees. There is no other Jason Voorhees.
Thank you. I wish there was another guy that played the character that was at this show so we could rub it in, but...
Next year.
We're all friends, though. CJ's a good friend of mine because, in my opinion, he did a great job in Part 6. And I felt very fortunate that I had Beekler on my side because I think if I did not, CJ would have done it again. So.
Well, it's wonderful that you've been able to maintain that wonderful relationship. So, well, obviously, as I've mentioned, you are the Jason Voorhees, iconic and memorable as ever. But I would be remiss not to mention your other incredible projects that you've had the privilege of working on. What was the most fun you had working on a project outside of the Friday the 13th franchise?
Oh man, there has been so many amazing, fun films that I did stunts in, and so many little significant parts in different movies that people don't really realize it's me. You know, and that's kind of fun for people to say, wait a minute, was that Kane that just did that so-and-so scene? Like Monster. Charlize Theron won an Oscar for it. And I was the stunt coordinator and I played the cop that arrested her at the end of the movie. And I thought that was amazing because this was a small budget film, Monster. 6-week shooting schedule, even less than the Friday movies. We shot it in Florida. Patty Jenkins directed, who is now Wonder Woman director. Never heard from her again, but anyway. But while we were shooting that film in Florida, people on the set were talking, she's going to win an Oscar for this. And some of us, including me, were thinking, I don't know, man, I don't know if people are really going to see it. Because it's a small movie. She wasn't that big of a star at the time. I mean, somewhat, but not like where people would go see a movie just because it's her. But people were talking, and then Patty said, I want you to play the cop that arrests her at the end. Undercover, because I don't really look like a cop, I guess, unless I'm undercover. And we shot the film, like I said, in Florida at a place, at a bar, a biker bar called The Last Resort. And as we're shooting there, especially that climactic scene, people were saying, this is where Eileen Wuornos was arrested. This exact bar. And I thought, wait a minute. We're shooting this scene in the place where it actually happened. And so I'm talking in between scenes, I'm talking to the owner of the bar, and I say, who owned this bar when Eileen Wuornos was arrested here? He goes, I did. I said, wait a minute, so you were here when all this really happened? And he said, yes, I was. I said, oh, you have to tell me if we're doing justice to the actual story. By, because when you film a movie, sometimes you change things to make it whatever, better in their minds or whatever. And he said, it's exactly what happened. So, to be doing the scene in the location where it happened, exactly as it happened, this biker, this cop who's dressed as a biker, gets Eileen to leave the bar so they can arrest her without a shitstorm happening within the bar. And I thought it was amazing that that was the case. And then there's so many other fun things I've done, like I beat up Daredevil's father in that movie, in the alley. That was me beating him up. I was one of Two-Face's bad guys in Batman Forever, with the piercings and all that, driving the crazy cars. And when you're a horror fan and you get a job working with Rob Zombie, Devil's Rejects, so and then all the TV stuff. I just went over to Kevin Nash to say hello because he and I did an American Express commercial with Jerry Seinfeld way back. And I don't know if it ever really aired because I don't remember seeing it that much, but we did do it. And then I did an episode of Seinfeld with Jerry after that, where I was a mugger on a bus that Kramer ended up driving. I don't know if you remember that episode. Some woman got in a car crash and lost a toe, and Kramer picked up the toe, put it in a Cracker Jack box, jumped on the bus to take it to the hospital so they could reattach it. Such a Seinfeld thing. And I was a mugger on the bus. Unfortunately, I don't exist in the final episode anymore because when episodic TV shows go to syndication, they often add commercial time. So they have to cut a little bit. So now Kramer talks about our fight to Jerry instead, and before when he'd talk about it, they would show it also. But unfortunately, Michael Richards was so funny telling the story, they said, we don't need this, show him. And he's like, I was on the bus and I forget why, but somehow he ended up driving the bus. And I'm still trying to mug him, I'm choking him while he's driving the bus. And he tells Elaine and Jerry, Jerry, the story. And he says, yeah, I was driving the bus and this guy's choking me, I'm driving the bus, he's choking me. And I kicked him out at the next stop. And the classic response, Jerry says, you kept making the stops? And he goes, they kept ringing the bell. So, I just wish it was still in the episode because that was so much fun. I did many big stunts on Days of Our Lives for many years, and Santa Barbara, if you remember that soap opera. They used to have something called sweeps weeks in daytime television where they get the ratings. So before sweeps time comes up, soap operas will go out on remotes and do exterior stuff. Big dramatic scenes, even though normally they're just in a soundstage. And I fell off a cliff, I flipped a car, I was even on fire on Days of Our Lives. So it was a fun show. I played softball for the team too. So
sounds like you guys did a little bit of everything. That's wonderful. All right, well, I have one last question for you before we turn it over to our wonderful audience here. This is kind of a fun one. So if you take a few different horror icons and take them in a battle royale type scenario, I'm gonna give you the list. I want you to tell me who's the winner. So your options are Mike Myers, Freddy Krueger, Michael Myers, excuse me.
Mike, that's a comedian. That's a comedian who I wouldn't mind punching in the face one day. I got nothing against it, I just think it'd be fun. You understand.
All right, Michael Myers, not to be confused with the guy you want to punch in the face.
Correct.
Noted. Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Leatherface. Who do you think is going to be the victor?
Okay, so, yes, but I'm trying to make it not so slanted. I think Leatherface would be a good battle with Jason. Michael Myers is pretty formidable, but to me, not as terrifying as someone trying to survive. But within the ring, Jason wins, Leatherface is close, Michael fucking watches, and Freddy's a bitch. We write things like that on people's autographs all the time. He says, Jason is a dumb shit, Freddy's a bitch, you know. He stepped it up a little bit, but maybe in big company, I don't say what he recently wrote on a hockey mask. I've shown it a few people tonight, but he made it more personal now. Now he wrote shit about Kane. So I'll be bending him over when I see him. Just a dominant thing, that's all. Not sexual. It'd be a good fight though, wouldn't it, with those four? I have always talked about, I wish I could do a film where Jason and Michael battle. And somehow, I want to play both characters. Because I've always loved the character of Michael. That, you know, it's a great character, and now since I'm doing the new Texas Chainsaw video game, we've been doing that for over a year and a half. They kept it very quiet for the first year. Oh, it's getting close to 2 years actually, in January. And I am I'm doing the motion capture for Leatherface, and trying to make it reminiscent of Gunner, because Gunner was Leatherface. I mean, R.A. is a good buddy of mine, did a fine job in part 3, but Gunner is Leatherface, and I wish he was still around because I miss him, and I'm trying to make the performance feel like him, so that, you know, which to gamers, maybe it's not that important to make it reminiscent of a performance they've seen, but, you know, I think it's fun.
Absolutely. I have no doubt that your performance will pay tribute to his incredible legacy, so thank you for really giving your all to every single thing you do.
Well, thanks.
Well, now it is that very exciting time to invite some of our audience members up to the mic here to do some Q&A.
Well, somebody was ready. Okay. A little closer. Somebody help her turn the mic on somehow, please.
Is it on? I
I believe it is, yes.
So my favorite Jason kills Jason X, where you break the guy's back in half. It's so brutal.
Wow, that's interesting.
It's really raw. What's your favorite kill?
Okay, so there's a couple different answers. My favorite Jason kill, and it always will be because it's not a weapon. Anyone can kill with a weapon. When you kill someone with a sleeping bag, that is classic. My favorite Jason kill is that. Followed closely by Frozen Head and Jason X. When you take a woman's head, instantaneously freeze it, and then smash it on the counter, that's classic. And then punching the guy's head off in Part 8. Now, there is one kill for me that's a little above those. And it's a Victor Crowley kill in the first Hatchet movie. And I'm sure you know what I'm leading up to. The older woman tries to run away. I'm not crazy about that. So I catch her from behind, put my hands in her mouth, and rip her head apart by her jaw. And the prosthetics were great. Robert Pendergraft is really good with prosthetics. We had one take of that, one possible, because the head couldn't be put back together. And Adam Green made it a 360 camera move, where I grabbed the actress, then the camera starts to do a 360 around us, at which time the prosthetic head is put in, so you don't see the edit really. And then as the camera comes back and lands here, I pull the head apart. And I was laughing my ass off, but hopefully you can't see it in the performance, because when I pulled the head apart, the tongue was still doing this shit. I said, oh, God, that's creepy. And I kind of laughed, but you can't really tell because of all the makeup. But those are my favorite kills. I like killing any way possible, but those are the top ones. Hi.
What was your favorite Jason you were going to play Jason as?
I loved all of them, obviously, because I'm playing the main character, but Part 7 will always be my favorite. It was my first. I think the makeup was the best. As a stunt person, it was by far the most stunts I ever had to do as Jason, because she could make things happen. So it's my favorite fire stunt in that movie, and I don't know, it was amazing to be on that set. And after that movie, that was in '88, for the next year, I started doing events like this, because I was now one of the guys that played Jason. And I would sign my name and put Jason number 7, because that's what I was. I was the 7th person to play Jason. When I found out I was doing Jason Takes Manhattan, I stopped writing 7 anymore. So if you ever see that autograph, it's far more unique than what I do now. Because now I put 7, 8, 9, 10. But yeah, but that's my favorite.
Okay, so this is actually my 9-year-old brother's question, because he is very hyper-fixated on the Friday the 13th series.
Okay. Hopefully that's not a bad thing.
Oh, no. He asked me to let you know that he loves Jason and ask you what it's like to be, quote, a movie murderer.
Well, 45 years in this business, I have almost never been the good guy. So it's easy for me, and I think any actor will tell you, it's so much fun to play the bad guy. You know, the good guy's fine, you get the girl, but I get to kill the girl. It's amazing to play a character like that. Let's just say that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
After participating in so many horror movies, I'm curious to know if you have a specific horror Story or scary story that's always scared you.
Wow, interesting question. Like a real life
It
type
doesn't
thing?
have to be from real life, just a really scary story that you've always liked or enjoyed that's really scared you.
Nothing that immediately pops into my mind. I've always loved the mysteries, like unsolved murders and stuff like that, intrigue me because, like, when you can get away with something, murdering people for a long period of time, and then often not even be caught ever.
Like the Zodiac.
Exactly. People like that. It's amazing to me that somebody could succeed doing that stuff for so long. And my favorite film of all time is The Exorcist. And I still think it holds up. You know, how many movies from 74 or 4? Anyway, right in that area. How many movies from that time period aren't laughably stupid now? And that one's still good.
Truly.
What?
I'm just curious, for those of you who actually did submit
Yeah.
in the when?
That
What?
wasn't me talking.
What?
That wasn't me talking.
I know, who was that? Somebody got another mic in here? It's haunted. This place is haunted.
So my favorite scene, without you killing, of course, is when you kick over the boombox. What is your favorite scene that you have filmed?
Other than the stunts, of course, I'm going to be partial to some of the stunt scenes. I will say that, you know, Jason Takes Manhattan, shot almost entirely in Canada, Vancouver. One night of shooting in Times Square. At the end of the shooting schedule, after we finish everything in Vancouver, we go to New York, knowing we're going to do shit in Times Square. I don't even know if that could happen anymore. That we had all of Times Square blocked with police everywhere, people on all side streets crowding the barricades trying to watch. And I'm standing in the middle of Times Square, completely in costume, thinking like, I feel like a rock star. Because everybody's watching everything I do. So that whole night, I never took the hockey mask off. Because I didn't want to ruin the image of people watching. Because in part A, if you took the hockey mask off, you could see my face. That was the only time that my face has been open like that. And so I didn't want to ruin it. And doing the scenes where we would shoot them and then on cut, people would cheer. It was unbelievably amazing to be there. Now, the boombox. I didn't tell this story till just recently, but whenever I played Jason, I thought it weakened the character to look down. So if I was walking and you tend to look down to see where you're walking, I never did that because, I don't know, I didn't think it stayed in character. So I got to kick this boombox. It's on a cardboard box, so I can kick it easier. And we roll, I walk, I kick the box, I trip over the fucking thing. God, yeah, I wish that footage still existed, but I don't think it does.
Oh, that's so sad.
So So I kicked that thing so hard on the next take it worked perfectly, but it was just, I didn't want that night of shooting to end. In all the movies I've ever done, that was the one most significant night of shooting in my career because it was so surreal to be there. And I feel like those actors that were cast for those characters, they must have been so excited. You know, if you're a horror fan and you're cast, you're going to be killed by Jason or messed with anyway in Times Square. That's amazing to me. One of the guys that was in that scene, he's on the photo on my table of that scene.
Yeah, I saw it.
He came by recently to my table and said, "Do you remember who I am?" I didn't, and he reminded me, and it was just cool to see him again because, you know, there's been a lot of crazy things happen in my convention career, such as recently, like 3 or 4 times now, somebody has come to the table and showed me a picture of me holding an infant at a convention. And now they're standing in front of me at 30. And I'm like, I gotta squeeze your head again. But yeah, so, you know, I will never not appreciate the things that have happened from playing Jason. How could you take it for granted? I am so fortunate in my career that I'll never not appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hi, gang.
Hey.
Just want to take a moment to thank you as well. Just for still kicking it, still doing all those roles. We love seeing you have these opportunities to play iconic characters like Jason and Leatherface and for the game. But there's a question I've always wanted to ask you since the age of 14 when I saw Jason Goes to Hell, and I saw the Necronomicon, and I recognized that. Let's say if you were still in the heyday, still using Jason, still rolling with it, would you take the opportunity to put on the mask, punch Bruce Campbell in the face while his chainsaw is grinding against your blade on Jason versus Ash?
Yes. I mean, Bruce is a buddy of mine, but I want to kill him in a movie so badly. No offense to him, but you know, he is another actor that appreciates what has happened throughout his career. I just like when people realize that and don't take it for granted.
This is the first time I've seen you today. How did you react to Ronnie not hiring you on Jason versus Freddy? And
Not very well.
how did you feel about not being able to kick Rubber's ass?
Oh, I know. Boy, I did get a little chance to kick his ass in the first Hatchet movie, but not really hand to hand, so it wasn't the same. But yeah, you guys know that that's a whole very sad part of my career when I am called into New Line Cinema to a meeting with New Line executive, just her and myself. I'm sitting in her office and she surprises me by saying, "We're finally doing this movie, Freddy versus Jason." Because we tried for years to get an agreement, but both sides wanted too much, and so it never happened. She gave me the script and said, "We're finally doing it." Now, wouldn't you think you have the job when you're told that? Yeah. So, in the following couple months, I was getting a weird feeling from New Line, and I thought, what's going on here? They had hired a director named Ronnie Yu that wanted to do something different. It's his movie, it's his deal, but he wanted to use somebody else. And I was obviously upset because I was told I was doing it. But when I was never given a decent reason for not doing it, they wanted to use a guy taller. So he's 2 inches taller than me. I'm not sure if that reads that dramatically on camera. And I was quite upset and realized, yep, I'm out. Never was any kind of, hey, sorry, man, you know, from New Line saying, the director just wanted to do something else, and nothing. Not even a fucking message to say, sorry, it didn't work out. Nothing. So, I probably shouldn't say this on camera, but a lot of people that enjoyed my performance made t-shirts that I only saw one picture of one, never saw the shirt. And it said, fuck you. Why you? Which is how Ronnie spells his last name. Now, I didn't have anything to do with that. I'm talking to that camera right there. I'm just reporting the facts. But it didn't make me angry to see that. I thought, okay, so some people are upset like I am, so I appreciate that. But anyway, that's how it was.
Thank you. Just before we go, I can say for everyone that the movie would have been much better if we were in it.
And you know, I think you already know, ironically, that the guy that played Jason in that movie was the guy I threw into the mirror on Jason Takes Manhattan. And he did the entire movie. They shot it in Vancouver, again, which is where he lived. And they had to do a pickup shot at the end of the movie where Jason has Freddy's head coming out of the water and Freddy wins. So that there's kind of an arbitrary ending to it. Now, Ken Kirzinger didn't even do that shot. The most iconic shot in the movie is a guy named Doug Tate. Because Kirzinger was Canadian, they shot that scene in LA, and they had to bring in somebody else, so he didn't even get to play his entire character, and that was kind of the most important scene in the movie, really, but anyway.
So as an actor, what is something that a director can do to you, a way that they can direct or approach a project that helps you a lot as an actor?
I would say, just for me, having enough faith and trust in my performance as the character to let me try some things. Not that they'll always be correct, but don't be so overbearing as a director that you don't let your cast perform. Sometimes directors have in their mind exactly what they want to see, and an actor will say, well, what if they tried this? Sometimes they don't want to listen to it. So I think it's much easier to work with a director that at least will hear you out. Again, you won't always be correct. There may be a reason where you can't do something the way you want to. But at least listen to your cast. Have faith enough that they know their character to possibly add to it. I know you're the director and you're supervising everything. Just listen, that's all. Thanks.
And we have time for one more question, so you are the lucky last one.
Oh, sorry guys. I talked too long, I know, sorry. Sorry.
I don't know if you could have guessed I'm a big Michael fan too.
The what?
I don't know if you could have guessed I'm a big Michael fan too.
I see that, yes.
I was just wondering, I remember there was a story where they wanted you to kick a dog and you said, no, Jason doesn't do that sort of thing, right? I just want to know, what exactly is the Jason moral code? What's the whole
me protecting animals and stuff, but for me it was just a character thing. I thought Jason would never hurt a dog. He would identify with the dog, if anything. And it just, I told the director, Rob Hedden, when I first read the script, I said, what is this? This is not something Jason would do. And fortunately, as I was just saying, he listened to my explanation and said, you know what, I think you're right. So we never did it. And I don't think I ever kept the version of the script that had it in there. I wish I had now. You know, you look back on things after you're done and you think, oh, I should have kept that. Or like Jason Goes to Hell, when Freddy's hand comes out of the ground and grabs a hockey mask, you probably know that's my hand. And I kept that glove because it was made by the same guy that built Robert's gloves for Nightmare. And so I kept a lot of stuff, but some of the things in retrospect I wish I had kept also.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for those incredible questions, and thank you so much, Kane, for being here. You are truly an icon, and we are so blessed to be